at all by that. Okay, so welcome. You're in the right place. I want to see you succeed. So for the past few years, I've been helping with CalTPA, almost primarily helping almost 1,000 teachers pass their TPA since 2022, and working in the schools helping people, my mentees in TPA prior to that. Um, it brings about a lot of stress for people, right? There's just so many requirements and expectations, and people come to me because they're overwhelmed, frustrated, unsure, not confident. And I'm your biggest cheerleader. Like, I am here to personally make sure that you feel confident when you submit your TPA, that you've done everything you know how, right? That's the only thing you can do. Everything you know how. And so that's what I'm here to help teachers do. And the first step in that is understanding what is CalTPA, right? So CalTPA is a performance assessment that you're going to do in two pieces, one piece, two pieces, whatever. The first piece is knowing student needs and planning for those needs. So it's um, student centered instruction based on students' needs, learning about your students and planning instruction. For multiple subject, that is going to be math. Okay. Um, for a single subject, it's going to be in your single subject, okay? Then cycle 2 is the application of the stuff that we do in cycle 1 by now adding assessment-driven instruction. And this is the language performance assessment for multiple subject, where you are meeting those requirements for the reading portion, which used to be called RECA. They're no longer requiring that, so that you can do this one cycle 2 TPA and meet those requirements. So they've eliminated one of the assessments that was getting in the way of getting credentials, right? So the math is the first cycle for multiple subject. Cycle 2 is language performance assessment. And if you're single subject, you do both in your subject. Okay. We're talking about asset-based instruction, not deficit thinking about our students. We talk about what they come with and what we can build on and how we can take them from where they are to where they need to be at grade level. And we use UDL, which is Universal Design for Learning, but I like to just say it's the way that we make sure that students are engaged and participating, right? It's not teacher-centered instruction, it is student-centered instruction. Okay, so both of them are built on the teaching learning cycle. We're going to plan a lesson, teach and assess students, reflect on the process, and apply to the next steps what we've learned. Okay, now listen, in teaching, we do a lot of planning, teaching, and assessing. But we don't do a lot of reflection and application. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we find ourselves busily trying to get to the next day. Like when you have to teach multiple subjects and you have to be planned, 6.5 hours of instruction a day, multiple subjects, and a new subject every 50 minutes, right? You don't have a lot of time to stop and reflect on what students are doing, right? So in the TPA, it's going to ask you to slow down and think about, how did your teaching go? What worked for students? What didn't work for students? How do you know? Right? And then based on that reflection, what do the students need next? Do they need some reteaching? Do they need some additional practice? Did the strategy you used fall flat? Did it make a lot of sense until it got in the students' hands? I mean, we've all been there when we're teaching, or you will, where you have this awesome lesson plan planned and the kids do not respond the way that we expected, right? Because of the amount of planning that you're going to do before you teach, this lesson's going to go probably the best lesson you will ever teach, because you've had to apply so many pieces to your planning. Think about all the needs of your students. You're planning under a microscope for this, but we're still going to reflect on the process. We're still going to reflect on the strategies we use. We're still going to do that, and then we're going to determine what it is that students need next to continue to grow and develop in that area. Check the messages. It says there's a new one. Okay. We'll just stay, we'll get to that one in a minute. TK is done all the time for all of these cycles. But before I go any further, I want to know a little bit about you and what you're teaching so that I can use appropriate examples as we move through. So, what do you teach and what cycle are you going to be doing like in October and November? So in the chat, what grade level and which cycle? We know Renee is going to be doing cycle 2 TK. Thank you, Renee, for your question. I will answer it. Thanks for being here, Heather, to get a good idea of what's going to be happening. Nice. Okay. There's been some changes to all of them from our previous versions, and separating out the special ed out of the gen ed. I mean, they had their own, but it was almost identical to gen ed, is one of the things. PE, nice. PE, it's super fun for TPA. All the things you don't teach that you have to put in there, academic vocabulary. Ed specialists are going to have their own TPAs, but they follow the same planning, teaching, reflecting, and application, but they do have their own assessment guide and templates. And the new cycle 1, old cycle 2, just want to make sure. Supervisor. Awesome. Hey, this is really the first time I've had mentors and supervisors in one of my trainings, and I love it. I love it because that just means more help for our teachers. Okay, so let's look at cycle 1. This is what you're going to be doing. You're welcome to take pictures of the slides. This is an overview meeting. It is simplistic on purpose because if I go too fast, too deep, you will get overwhelmed, and then I've got stressed out people leaving me, and I want you to feel better leaving from me than when you got here, right? I want you to have more clarity and more confidence than when you popped into the room. So each of these 4 steps have some requirements that you're going to meet when you are filling out your templates. In the chat or on your screen with one of your reactions, can you give me a thumbs up if you have already registered for one of the cycles of the TPA? Registration started last week, so if you haven't registered, you're not doing anything wrong. I was on a training with the state today, and they said they've got almost 1,000 people registered for the new versions already. I don't know what they normally have, but they seemed excited about that. To me, that means we got 1,000 teachers at least out there that are making sure that they want to do everything right and pass it the first time, right? Okay, so when you're planning, you're going to be identifying and making accommodations, supports, and scaffolds for 3 focus students. Those focus students are students who in math or your subject struggle with academic language development or the language necessary to do the work. Okay. This can be an ELD student. This year, it does not have to be an EL student. Okay. Academic language vocabulary, somebody who's low in the language that they're bringing to class, that you need to focus on them with academic language development. We know that in math, in most of our grade levels and subject areas, they're using word problems, somebody who might struggle with being able to do that, who needs academic language development around the standard that you're choosing. Your second focus student is a student who struggles in math or the content that you're going to be doing. And the third student, before I jump to the third student, your second student can be a student with an IEP or a 504, but it does not have to be. It could just be a struggling math student. And the third student is a student who has challenges inside or outside of school that makes it difficult for them to continue to grow at the same rate as their peers. So it could be a social emotional issue. It can be something going on at home. It can be relational at school, something that makes learning challenging for the students, and we're going to give them accommodations and supports to engage with, participate in, and access grade level standard. Okay. And then you're going to be planning 1 lesson for math, just 1 lesson that you incorporate the strategies necessary to engage all of your students in your grade level standard. Now, they're calling these groups instead of classes. Okay, you are going to teach this lesson to a group of students. That group can be 3 or more students. Okay, your 3 focus students, if you just want to teach them, I'll address that in a minute. A larger group of students, 6 to 8, or your whole class. A lot of that depends on the setting that you're in, the classroom management that you have, the ability to pull a group and work with them while the others are not disruptive. Maybe you are student teaching and you can pull out a small group of kids and do it in another room. They wanted it to be very flexible so that you had a lot of opportunities to choose what's going to work best for your setting. Okay. But you need to teach to 3 or more students. On camera, you need 2 or more students visible, and you can see and hear them. That leaves you some space for, in case a student, if you're just teaching your 3 focus students, then you couldn't get a permission slip for one of them and they're still in your group, but they're not on camera. Okay. I feel like, and this is my opinion, I will always tell you the difference between the assessment guide requirements and my opinion. My opinion is a group of 3 is too small to really get data and really be able to do the reflect piece. And that's because if you're only focusing on your 3 focus students, you're not going to be, you're doing all these strategies and stuff. You don't really have a baseline of how the lesson went, right? So my recommendation, what I've seen be most successful, is 5 or more students, 6 or more students, somewhere in there, so that you've got a lot of engagement, participation. You've got a variety of levels of students in there so that the engagement is visible. The reflection is easier. You can see what's working, what's not. You have more data. There's not really data like numbers that you have to write down, but you've got more data to build on if you have more students. Does that make sense to everyone? Thumbs up if that makes sense, okay? But the assessment guide is you need to teach to 3 or more students, and 2 or more must be visible in your videos. Once you've taught your lesson, you're going to record everything. If you have to, you start teaching it, it feels like it's falling apart, you push stop and you go back and you start again. Keep it all, okay? Just record everything that you do related to this lesson, because you never know what's going to pop and be better than you thought. And sometimes we think, okay, I've got this plan, I'm just going to record this piece, and it doesn't go according to plan, or the students didn't engage the way we thought, or you're not recording and there's this amazing conversation that you're like, oh, I can't go back and recreate that. So just record everything. Then you're going to choose 1 to 3 clips that add up to 15 minutes about certain things that you need to have in your recording. And I'm not going to dive into those now because it gets a little overwhelming if I get too deep. But in your assessment guide, it explains what those clips are. If you're in my master class, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, we will go through it step by step by step together. But you're going to find the pieces. One of the pieces is safe and positive learning environment. And you're going to then write a commentary of what is happening and why, right? What is happening that shows a safe and positive learning environment? What shows the students being engaged? What shows the students, I'll come back and answer that, Uma. What shows the students having conversation with respectful rapport with one another? What pieces of that video are showing what's happening and why? And you're going to use content language development, assessments, and things. So we're gonna, it's the content that they're learning, the language development that they have, and how you're assessing their learning. Those are the areas that you're going to be focusing on, but they're more specifically defined in the assessment guide. Okay. And then reflection, you're going to critically analyze, and they're really focusing on this word analyze right now. Okay. The effectiveness of the lesson. I do want to stop and answer Renee's question real quick because it goes back to this teach and assess is, would morning circle on the carpet going over the rules part of the safe environment? Let's focus on instruction related to your standard and your learning goals, which is going to be your math in this case. So how are students participating? Are they listening? Are they raising their hands? Are they focusing on task? Or are they rolling around on the carpet? Are they shouting out? Is it kind of feel chaotic? We don't want that. So a safe and positive learning environment has more to do with the engagement and participation in the lesson that makes learning safe, and the strategies that you implement that make learning safe, to take risks, to make mistakes without teasing, those kind of things, that's safe and positive, more than the carpet rules. Okay, so you'll get a higher score if you're focusing on what's happening during the lesson than you will if you talk about going over the rules. Does that make sense, Renee? Okay, then you're going to critically analyze the effectiveness of your lesson. And that means going back and thinking about, okay, what did I plan? What did I teach? What did the kids say in my commentary? What did I see happening? How effective was it? Not just a summary of what you've already done, but the effectiveness of the learning of your students. How do you know it was effective? What made it effective? What could you do to make it more effective next time? Okay. And then what would you do differently? And then you're going to answer some questions about what you would do to continue to develop their math skills include UDL and academic language development. Okay, so there's 4 parts to cycle 1. These are the 4 parts, and each part has expectations in it that you will be doing and then writing about. Okay, let me answer a couple questions before I go into cycle 2, because there was a few things that popped up here. Okay, PE teacher for middle school, and I'm planning to complete cycle 1 and cycle 2 by the end of the year. Yes. Okay. Registered for the old version. Can I cancel and re-register for the new version? Yes, you should be able to go back, unenroll, and unregister and re-register. Should your small groups be all struggling students or a mix plus the 3 focus students? I think it's easiest to make sure that students are also showing success and being successful to have a mixed group. But if you want to have all a whole group of struggling students, what I would recommend is making sure that you really got some great classroom management and engagement strategies with them, because we know that those are things that kind of pop up when we are working with our lowest population, our students with the lowest scores. Most often when we put them together, it takes more to keep their attention and keep them engaged. So make sure that you've got that thought through really well, depending on the group that you choose. Can we do TK video 1, small whole group on the rug, video 2, small group going over the lesson, and video 3 back to the rug to review? I would just record it all. If you're going to move from one place to another, just move the camera, because you're not going to turn in the entire video in its entirety. You're going to clip out the pieces that you need that add up to 15 minutes and meet all the requirements. So when we get back into the assessment guide and we look at it specifically during the master class, we will talk about the best ways to do that for you, your kids, your lesson. But yes, you can do pieces of the lesson from different parts of the room, because we know that some direct instruction at the carpet, give them a little bit of movement back to their desk, get them refocused, get to do something as think, pair, shares, or collaborative, or independent with their manipulatives, or whatever it is. We know that movement helps to keep them focused. So yes, you can do it, but I want you to record everything and not stop the recording in between just because you just want everything. Okay, it won't hurt you to push stop and then restart once the kids, but sometimes we forget, right? We get wrapped up in the lesson and we're like, crap, I didn't even record that. We just don't even want that. We just don't even want that. If you are teaching with another teacher, if you've got a master teacher or an aide or someone else who can man the recording and they can move it, and they could, like, if there's something that you want to zoom in on where kids are having a conversation that you want to hear what they're saying, if you can get your instructional coach, mentor teacher, aide, master teacher, somebody to help out with that, it just takes that off your shoulders. But it's not bad to just have it on a tripod recording, and then if you need to go and move the tripod so it's recording a different section, you can do that. Test everything first. Make sure that you can hear the kids well. They're usually the problem. Make sure that you can be heard well. If you need a microphone and you hand the microphone to kids to be heard, do it. Okay? Are we using the PTKLF or the Common Core for Kinder? Kinder is Common Core. PTKLF is for TK. So if you're doing kindergarten, you're using the Common Core state standards. If you're doing TK, you can use the PTKLF standards, and that is new this year. What if one of my focus students is absent on the day I present my lesson and I want to record? Okay, so this was a good conversation that was had earlier when I was on the training. Was a similar conversation they said kind of keep in mind another student in that kind of mirrors some of the needs and requirements of your focus students so that you can kind of think of them and how they are responding and just slide that information in there. Sometimes we can't help it if they're just not there, right? Like that is, but you are going to answer questions about how did it go for your focus students. So we need to be able to have some way to say these strategies worked or didn't work. Okay. So kind of a doppelganger student. I don't love that idea. I would prefer that we just think about, but your focus students, and that's another good point that you made me think of. Your focus students should represent the group as a whole that needs that support. So your student who needs academic language support should be a student. I'm going to go back before you start reading all that. Should be a student that is kind of the center of the needs of that group. When you choose the extreme, somebody who's extremely low or extremely high, then they don't really represent the group of students who are in that group. So pick someone who's pretty representative of the group, and then if they're not there, pick somebody else to keep an eye on how they're doing in the lesson and put that information in. Okay. We can't make the world perfect. We're just trying to make it work. You can message me if you get stuck in something like that. I'm in the CalTPA group on Facebook. You can message me on Messenger. My contact information will be at the end. Okay, so cycle 2. I'm not seeing any other questions. I'm gonna hop over there. Cycle 2 is our literacy or our literacy performance assessment. This one is bigger. This one has more requirements. So the first one is teach a lesson, thinking of the needs of your students, record it, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it from different perspectives. We're going to talk about it from the perspective of planning in the future. We're going to talk about it from in the moment doing it. We're going to talk about it in the past. How did it go? And we're going to talk about it again based on what I know, what's going to happen next. Okay, so it feels like you're talking about the same thing over and over and over. You are, but you're looking at it from different perspectives, almost like different sides of a car accident or something. There's different things from different places that build the entire picture. So for cycle 2, we're going to apply what we learned in cycle 1 to a series of lessons that add up to a week, and I'm going to put that in quotation marks, a week's worth of lessons. So 3 to 5 lessons that build the concept from beginning to independent assessment. Okay. So if I'm going to, thinking about early literacy, if I'm going to have students read a CVC word or CVC words, right? Day 1, I might introduce what is a CVC word, right? What, well, yeah, consonant, vowel, consonant would be good, right? So a consonant, we could build the academic vocabulary. What is a consonant? What is a vowel? Now I know kindergartners aren't really going to know that and take it in, but we can still use high academic vocabulary because when we teach it, kids can learn it. The cutest thing I think I ever saw in a TPA was a bunch of TK students, and they were subitizing, and they were explaining what subitizing was. They did subitizing, and had I not learned what subitizing was about 5 years earlier, I wouldn't have had a clue what they were doing. But the cutest thing when a TK student was talking about subitizing in math, it was a math concept. I was dying. I was laughing so hard because if a TKer can tell me what subitizing is, a TK or a kindergartner can tell me what a consonant is, right? They can do it when we teach them what it is. So for cycle 2, you're going to have one focus student, And this whole thing is really going to be to make sure that this student is successful, even though we're teaching the whole group. But this focus student, we're going to have one focus student. We're going to have a standard, an ELD goal, and a literacy skill. And you're going to have assessments, formative and summative assessments that these students need to show how they are learning and what they are learning. You will have 3 to 5 lessons in your original lesson sequence. And at the end, over here in our application part, you're going to do a reteach and extension lesson. It doesn't belong here, but I put it here because teachers don't know up front that there's an additional lesson back here and they get shocked at the end when they get there. And then I don't want tears and frustration that it's now time to turn it in and I'm missing an entire lesson. So you're going to do 3 to 5 lessons, then your follow-up or application reteach or extension lesson here. All of them are going to be recorded. All of it. Anything you do related to it. Okay? Can it be one of the same focus students as cycle 1? If that focus student makes sense to use, because the requirements of the focus student are going to be literacy based instead of math based. Okay. All right. Then you're going to record everything. And this time you get 1 to 4 clips that add up to 20 minutes where you're talking about what happened and why. Your explicit instruction, ELD development or language development, and the use of your assessments are what you're going to be using in your commentary. And then you're going to reflect on the lessons. Again, how effective was it? And you're going to be looking at your summative assessment results. You're going to provide actionable feedback to this focus student. You're going to submit the focus student's work sample, scoring, rubric, and reflection. And then based on the assessment results, you are going to plan a next steps lesson. Now, this is an intervention or support lesson for your focus student. You can have other students in the group who also struggled or who needs the reteach or extension that you're providing over here. But this is determining and planning the next steps for learning basically for what the needs of the focus student are based on the work sample, the feedback, the reflection piece that you did over here. Okay. If you have any friends who did version 7, or if you are a person who started on version 7, this is very different. Okay. Please, please, please don't borrow your friends' version 7 examples. It will confuse you. There is a lot of things that seem similar, but the difference is in what the learning goals are, what you're supposed to be recording. And we're doing commentary instead of annotations. What we're submitting is different. So I know it would be great to know that you had somebody who had done this before, but you guys are the firsts. This 1,000 teachers going through it right now who have already registered or coming up to register are the first ones to turn these in. The benefit to that is the score goal is low. You only need to get 16 total points. There are 8 rubrics. 3s are meeting the goal. So 8 times 3 is 24. If you get 16 points, which is getting 2s in each of them, you are reaching the passing score. This year, based on the feedback they get, based on the answers they get, based on the changes they make for next year, the scoring level will go up. Okay, so this is a great time to be the first. You don't have examples, but you have a lower score, and I'm here to answer the questions and walk through it with you anyway, right? Okay, so cycle 2. Let me see if there's any questions over here. Is one of the clips the reteach lesson. Let me go back over here. You will have 1 to 4 clips based on your 3 to 5 lessons here. Then you will teach, record, and submit a different video here. So total, there's up to 5 clips and up to 25 minutes of video time if you add this to this. I don't know what my dog is doing, but he's like all over the place. Bodhi, just sit down. For math, are you able to provide an example of a TK standard? Not right this minute, Nora. That would be something that we would talk about and get into those TKLPQRSTUV standards. No, it doesn't flow off my tongue as well. PTKLF standards to figure out what you want to do. Okay. For ed specialists, your focus students are going to focus on students with disabilities, your IEP and 504 driven needs instead of all of the same academic standard or a what's it called? Academic vocabulary development, ELD, all those things. You're going to be focusing more on your IEP and 504 needs. You're going to show evidence based on practices, best practices for your students. You're going to include progress on IEP goals and collaboration with support staff. Now, they've really broken these down. There are 5, I think, ed specialist TPAs. So they've really broken them down based on needs, all the way down to our students with hard of hearing and stuff like that, okay? And then similar to gen ed cycles, but with added documentation of interventions and accommodations. So a lot of the questions are gonna mirror the gen ed ones, but there are some very specific targeted things for your students in the ed specialist needs. And I think that's great because last time they basically made it really difficult for the special ed teachers to apply all the things to their students who had such specific targeted needs, right? I mean, grade level, you're still going to follow the laws with grade level standards and all that, but you can use a lot of the resources that you have available to you, your adaptive curriculum, things like that. Okay? Before I even talk about that, let's just see if there's any other questions related to what is the TPA? What is this about? What am I going to be doing? Nora's thinking ahead. She's like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this, but I'm confused because my teacher told me that I need to use kinder standards. And that was the case until version 1. Version 1 lets TK use the preschool TK standards. And so if your supervisor instructor is telling you to use kinder standards in TK, they need to reach out to the state or the director of their program or whatever and get the most updated information because there's been a lot of changes. And I've spent, I can't tell you how many hours on CTC trainings for 2 hours going through these and listening to a lot of the same information over and over. But I wanted to make sure I understood the different versions, and I'm doing the deep dive sessions and stuff so that I can be as ready to go as possible for the new versions. I'm doing interpreting data for more or less and equal for TK. Ooh, sounds fun. Okay, so as you can tell, this is the tip of a very deep iceberg, right? Like, this is the whole point of this one. This workshop is to say, this is what you're going to be doing. This is not the workshop for how to do it, right? How to do it is very step by step. I cannot tell you enough that you need to do this in steps. Don't look at what you have to do in the apply piece and try to work backward or anything like that. This is very purposefully step by step. And if you do it out of order, there adds confusion, it adds missing pieces, it adds a lower score or having to redo it. So we don't want that. It's complex, right? And what it is very different than how to do it. Here's the what, that's what's floating on the surface of the water. But underneath is how. And that is, what do I pick for my standard? Who are my focus students? How do I write to these rubrics? Because these questions are asking me what cultural or linguistic or interests do my students have that I can build on? Like, there's lots of specificity to each of the questions. And doing it alone causes chaos and confusion. And I'm glad there's a couple of mentors and supervisors here trying to learn so that they can help their um, candidates pass the first time. And if you don't have that kind of support at your school, I will do it with you, right? I have master classes. There are 10 weeks of step-by-step guidance. We've already started one. I've got 5 people. We're going to be in week 3 this week. They've got their lesson plans done. They've got their template A done. They're getting ready to record. We're in it, right? Week 3, they know exactly what to do. There's 5 people. It's co-working with Q&A directed by me. And then we're going to look at the rubrics and assess ourselves and find evidence that we have all the pieces from the rubrics before we submit, right? So step by step. You can message me at any time, unlimited messaging. I have proven success rates of 100% pass rates with my one-to-one clients, 98% pass rate with my clients using my video program from before. And then these small group sessions are going to have, I have not done small groups before, so I don't have data for that, but I expect the same kind of results. And we are starting new cohorts, hopefully enough for cycle 2 and enough for cycle 1 on October 6th. Okay. If you don't want to do this alone, or if you're feeling overwhelmed, or you want step-by-step help, or someone that you can reach out to pretty much at any time while you're working, because if you're working at 8 o'clock at night and you need an answer to your question, you just message me and I'm there, right? You don't have to wait for an email to go to somebody and then hopefully a couple of days later get a response. So I'm opening sessions starting October 6th. And tonight, because you're here and you sat through this and you're excited to get this going and started, I'm going to give you a $50 discount with the discount code, which means that you are paying $54 a session for those 10 weeks of unlimited support and help. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to put the link in the chat, and we are done with the overview information, which means if you've got to run, run. But if you want to stay and ask questions, stay and ask questions, okay? Let me grab that link for you guys. The number of pieces of technology it takes to do this is so fun. And I'm going to include the discount code. You guys are going to watch me do it. It says $16 here, but that's $16 off each of the 3 payments. I broke it down into payment plans to make it easy to participate. Okay. And in the chat, 10, 10 sessions, Uma, so it's about $550 total, broken into 3 payments of $182 each. You can check that out there. And you feel free to stay and ask questions about it if you want. Okay, definitely take a picture of this contact page so that you can always find me. If you're not in the CalTPA group on Facebook, get there because I post a lot of things. I answer a lot of questions. I put in a lot of videos. All right, I'm going to go back and answer questions. I'm going to stop sharing here. And the first question I haven't answered yet is, if we don't pass on the first submission, can we revise and submit like previous TPAs? Yes. If you don't pass, and I'm not expecting a lot of fails in this year because the scoring is low, but if you don't pass and you have to resubmit, doing the edits is not that hard. It's getting the feedback and understanding where you need to improve. Doing it the first time, having not done it before, that's the part that makes people most confused. Yeah, Renee, each cycle is 10 weeks of its own purposeful in support. So yes, it would be about $550 per cycle, but do them one at a time. I haven't had anyone ask to do them together. I could probably do a bundle, but I haven't thought of that one yet. All right, now that we're not presenting, if you want to come off mute or turn on your camera and you want to ask questions, you can do it that way or keep putting them in the chat.
Hi there. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
I have a question, doing the TK one for literacy, because
Mm-hmm.
I've read all the new foundations. I went over it, and I'm gonna be honest, there's nothing that sticks out that's gonna last 3 or 5 lessons, it seems like to me, you know, without my kids losing interest.
Okay, so give me an example of something you've looked at and wondered about.
Uh, letter recognition, trying to write the letter A.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it just seems, I've done a few lessons, and I mean, they understand it, but I I don't understand how to go back and reteach it and assess it for the one student. Like the rubric just seems kind of silly because if I want them to write the letter A, I can just have them do that, sort of.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to consider what are the literacy skills that they need, right?
Mhm.
And how are we going to get them to be able to do it? TK, using play is one of the essential elements of a TPA this year. Through play, through engagement, how are we going to get them to be able to do that skill on their own? So,
So I used Play-Doh. I did a touch.
right. So a lesson does not have to be 45 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So what are the things that your students need to be able to do? And you might choose two, right? It might be the sound and the writing, or it
That's
might
what I was
be
thinking.
identifying it and using it,
Okay.
right? So that you can have multiple, but there's the introduction of it, there's the whole group activity, there's the calling one student up at a time and having them do some stuff as our I do, or our gradual release of responsibility, the teacher piece, right?
Okay.
That's the lesson. And then the next day's lesson could be that you have out um a bunch of capitals and lowercase letters, and they are sorting and finding the A's from there, right?
Okay. And
Um, And
And
then
this
creating it with Play-Doh could be another lesson. And now if, because you're talking about something that's more simplified, and I don't believe that with TK kids that it is, you might be able to do two lessons in one day's recording, if
yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah, I already thought about doing that.
But what does it, backward planning, what are you going to assess? What are kids going to be expected to do independently, especially the summative assessment of that? And then what skills do you need to give them? What lessons do you need to give them to be able to accomplish that summative assessment?
Gotcha, okay.
Okay. So that's your progression of lessons. It's not necessarily teach the lesson, reteach the lesson, reteach the lesson. In your upper grades, you might read a text, do some information, but then the next day you reread the text and you annotate for a specific essential question. You might repeat some of the same information multiple times from different perspectives. Same thing with TK. It just looks differently because they're not getting chunks of texts,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and do I have to have a technology part?
No, they took the technology out.
God. Oh, I was so whew.
Oh, I'm so grateful for that. Especially
Yeah,
the literacy was so hard to do the technology for the literacy because even in the upper grades, like educational technology, when you're writing an essay, you're like, what? So, I mean, we
oh,
want kids doing it when it makes sense, but not just to do it.
okay, whew. Because I purchased boom cards and I had the kids do boom cards
It
and
might be fun activity still to do, but it's not a requirement.
oh, thank you. Whew, okay,
It can be
appreciate that.
done for whole class and on your smart board or something too. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, whew, thank you.
No problem. Next, more questions.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Um,
Regina.
yes, I did not pass my RECA. I took it
Okay.
like I took it 2 times. So
I get it. I get it.
I was going to try to take it one more time. And so with the TPA, I didn't do those either. So and I'm no longer working.
Okay.
So I know that I can go and get a group of students and work with them to get to know them as focused
Mm-hmm.
students. Am I able to do that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's about the only way you're going to be able to do it, right?
right. Because
So you can get to know that. So if you have a teacher that'll let you work with alongside them or with them with their kids, right?
yeah,
Borrow some of their students, a handful of kids. You can also get a lot of the data and the information from that teacher
mhm,
about who they are, their assets, the needs that they have, the data to support them, all that stuff. So yeah, you can do that. And since you're not in a program, the master class is probably ideal for you because then we're stepping through it and you can take what you learn there, go do it with this teacher because your friend or whoever you're borrowing a class from, they're not going to know this, right? They're
right.
not going to know all this information because it's brand new.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, what am I going to do? I was like, I could go to my son's school and volunteer every day and get to know I know the
Yeah,
ed.
if you've got a teacher who you've got a relationship with and will let you borrow a handful of students to teach your lesson or lessons, that would be best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Orla asked, I feel good about my content of my clips for cycle one, but I'm worried about something that happened during my lesson that will go against the policy and will get me coded. Why don't you come off mute, Orla, and give me a little bit of detail?
Hi, thank you. So, just kind of a quick question. I recorded my lessons. Clip 1 and 2 are good. Clip 3, my professor was watching them last night, and she said that because you can see my mentor teacher sitting in the back and talking to a student, the student had to go home because he was sick. So she was getting his backpack ready and
Mhm.
everything. She said that that is a problem because you can't have another adult like interacting with the student. I mean, you can't hear her.
That is not true.
Really?
Yes, you are fine.
Okay, yeah, because then,
This is a normal day,
yeah,
right? This is a normal classroom with normal activity. You can
okay.
have aides working with students over at another table.
Mm,
You can have parent volunteers in doing that. You can have the student or your master teachers walking around, but the
mhm,
instruction and learning is showing your TPA is showing you as the instructor and the students as participants in learning. If they're
yeah.
trying to send a sick kid home in the back, that's not even a thing. And I wouldn't even point it out in
Okay,
your commentary because it's not going to matter.
okay.
And we don't, first of all, we don't want to point out things that we don't want the assessor to look at.
Right. Yeah, because
So
I'm just,
if a student is over there screwing around, we don't want to be like, well, that student has a special, like, no,
yeah, well,
we're
yeah.
gonna like try not to focus on that student. We're going to answer the questions and comment on what we're supposed to be seeing. Draw the assessor's eyes to what we want to see, but it's not a code. It's not a problem. I don't know where they came up or where they've heard or where the some of this stuff trickles down. It's not like they're purposefully saying it. They've heard it somewhere else. But it's not in the assessment guide.
Yeah.
If it's not in the assessment guide, it doesn't
I
matter.
looked, yeah, I dug to see if it's in
And it's
there.
opinion,
Yeah,
if it's not in the assessment guide. And that's
yeah.
why I said if it's not in the assessment guide, but I've seen it happen multiple times, I'll say, this is what I know to be true,
Mm-hmm.
which is there's adults coming in and out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, this is not CASP or state testing where the doors are basically locked down and nobody's allowed to move. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
This
Yeah,
is a
because I
day.
was going to just crop the frame because she's kind of just in the back, so I literally could just like zoom it up so she
Yeah,
can't be seen.
don't crop anything, but thanks, Renee. Um, for editing, the only thing you'll want to edit out, take out your clips, and then if there's like wasted time for transitions or papers being passed out that's taking a while, and you want to crop out stuff like that, then
Mm-hmm.
do it. You could crop in like that, but it's not necessary, and that gets complicated and
Yeah.
convoluted, and then it might be bigger because you've zoomed in. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
Overall, it's okay. Okay, that is so
Yep,
relieving because I had already written like half the work and she was like, you can't use that clip. And I was like,
you can use the book.
okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Anyone else? Erica.
Oh, I put it in the chat, but I
Oh, I
can't.
cannot hear you, Erica.
Hello?
Hold on.
Hello? No?
No, my volume's all the way up.
Wonder why it's not.
Can anybody else hear her?
No.
Okay. I'm like, is it me?
Okay, I wrote it.
No, I can't hear you, Erica.
No. Let me turn it off and on.
What app are you using to record? That is a better question for the CalTPA group where people are using a variety of things, but I think most people are using their phones.
Can you still know?
I don't know, Erica. You want to put it in the chat?
Yeah, I put it
Or at least
in the
start it in the chat?
It's in there already.
Did you put it over there and I'm not seeing it? Okay, let me scroll back up. Erica, 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 Erica. How far did I go? Skipped you. I'm not seeing it in the chat.
Okay, I'll send it again.
Did you push send? Yours is trying to take you down tonight, Erica. Zoom, not Erica's friend. Oh, I'm not seeing one.
Is it?
You're welcome, Maria.
Hold on. Still nothing? Still nothing?
Any other questions? I'm gonna grab Erica in just a second. I think I could probably get a hold of you on Facebook or something. I could call you. We'll figure it out.
I can message.
If you want to even, are you in the CalTPA group, Erica?
Mhm.
Okay. I will look for you in just a minute on Messenger and see if we can connect that way. Okay. Sorry, Regina, it's $540 for each cycle because each cycle is its own 10-week program. Does that make sense? Okay. You're welcome, Nora. Thanks for being here, everybody. I really appreciate you. Find me on Facebook. Erica, I'm gonna look for you in just a minute and reach out because if you want to talk, I can call you through Facebook, which is a thing. It's kind of cool. Maybe that'll work better than Zoom tonight. Thank you for being here, Regina, Orla, Nora, Erica, and everyone else. You can find me at all those places that we had, and I look forward to seeing you in our masterclass. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.